give us a presentation about a new company that's interested in, maybe locating in Mississippi County. And with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Chipwood.
Thank you, Justice White. I'd like to thank all of you members of the Quorum Court for your help in getting the tax sales tax extension passed. I think we all did well there. This is a project that I'm going to present. I'm still operating under a non-disclosure agreement, so I can't say the name of the company. And if the name of the company gets out, we could be in touch with the governor's office and the AEDC. So if I accidentally slip, let's just erase everything.
Hey, he's told me you can't edit it.
Okay.
I'm asking to edit some stuff out.
But it's moving pretty fast. I called the site consultant Tuesday night when we knew that the tax was passed, and we could actually go forward on the incentives that we had put on the table. And then by Wednesday, they were in deep discussion, wrapping up strings with the AEDC and their incentive package. And by yesterday, they were talking to the governor's office about a possible announcement very soon. So what we've offered, this is a great project. It's the largest project we've worked since Big River Steel. It's 227 jobs, which is job heavy. It's $65 million in capital, which we've gotten to look at is not very expensive. With billion-dollar investments from major steel mills, but still, it'll be a $50 million building and about $15 million worth of equipment to begin with, to hire the 227 people. The average wage will be about $24 an hour is which is not bad, and it may have to go a little higher because, you know, we've all read the stories. It's a little more difficult to get people to go to work now. The state has put on the table an incentive package of, let's see. Well, the state incentive package is about $6.5 million. Ours, we've offered $12,000 per job on Mississippi County residents, $6,000 per job on anyone they hire from the boot hill, and of course not anything on anybody else. We've offered a 65% tax abatement, property tax abatement that can come through the city or it can come through the county. That translates, of course, to a big number, but it's a standard deduction. The thing I'm most excited about, we've offered them $300,000 for a screen, hire, and train program, which would be operated through the people in ANC. We did this several years ago for IPSCO when they first came, and it was highly successful as far as getting more Mississippi County people hired in the beginning, because that's what's, you know, and of course we've all just been through the election process and heard from the constituents, and that's what they care about, is getting our people hired. That's of course what we care about. So by doing that, and training right now is especially hot for all employers, because the manufacturing process is more sophisticated every year. It takes better training, it takes specialized training in their equipment. So, of course, the state has a big chunk of training dollars in here as well that would also flow through ANC. But I think the key thing we will gain with this is we'll have people there on the inside consulting with HR for the new company directly. And they will, of course, our people will, and we don't want them to hire someone who's not qualified, but if there's two qualified people, we want the Mississippi County person to get the job. And because often if they have an HR person, they may be aware of our incentive, that it's performance-based, but unless they've had a superior tell them directly to maximize the number of Mississippi County people, they may just decide not to do it, you know, or especially once you get that first nuclear group put together, you know, if they're not our friends in that initial group, then it's gonna be hard to crack from here on out. So this is an effort to get in on the start. So, I did everything but, run that total figure up. I apologize.
So how do you figure that? The maximum number of jobs, 227 times the 12,000?
I've given them, well, that would be the maximum. I've given them,
That's 2.7.
that's right. I'll put in the contract that they have to begin, construction within 6 months. And then that we will monitor this yearly thereafter for them to show us the number of people they have and where they live. I think, I mean, obviously, it's early now, we have 13 years to run. You know, we don't, at this point in time, we don't really have to put any cutoff. I mean, we'll put a 5-year cutoff. If they don't have it by year 5, the contract's over, and they would have to apply for an extension. And you know, when I talk to them again, I may talk to them about doing that at the end of year 3. So we'll maybe get to year 3, see where they are, and then if say they've got 160 at year 3, but they're still hiring, then we can extend it again. I really kind of wanted to ask y'all what your view on that was. I mean, the way it was simple when we gave the incentive up front. You know, we gave the incentive, the money was gone. But now we've got several millions of dollars that are kind of in limbo.
Encumbered.
That are encumbered. They've technically been committed, but in point of fact, no one's ever going to hire 100% Mississippi County employees. I mean, that's just, you know, this is an employment center. People come from everywhere to work here, and we're never going to get 100% of the jobs. So,
What's the average, would you think, on larger industries? And I know you've given me numbers from Big River, you've given me numbers from Nucor, they're kind of close but not. What would you say would be a fair average
I
of
would think,
normal
now I would think
Mississippi
in a
County?
company like this, at $24, $25 an hour, probably 60, 70, maybe 70%
Really?
will be Mississippi County. Now, if we were looking at, you know, $50 an hour or $70 an hour, like at a mill, that drops, because then people can, but you can't drive in here and stay in a nice RV for $24 an hour. You have to live here, or very close, or the Boot Hill. Or you could live in the Panto, but we're not gonna help them.
So do you have a number in mind that you wanna ask for, or are you asking for our opinion?
I'm asking for your opinion.
If we do 1.5 mil by $12,000, that's 125 jobs, but
Right.
is that enough of a commitment? That's a little better than half. Well,
Yeah.
a little better than half at 125. Do you think we need to do more?
Why don't I put the contract, let's see. I don't want them or the state to think we're,
Shorten them?
yeah. Let's just do, if it's okay, let's do it all this time. And on the next one,
2.7?
yeah. And I'll put in the contract that we will review it at the end of year 3.
Okay.
And if progress is not suitable to both parties, we may negotiations may reopen.
Keep in mind, y'all, he's talking 2.7 mil commitment, but we're receiving about 3.2 to 3.5, and this year may be even better because we've had a good sales tax year. So call it 3.5, and he's asking for 2.7, so he's still only asking for 9 months worth of tax receipts. Really, is about all he's
And
asking for.
that just stays on the books, kinda like the other ones do.
Right.
Yeah,
and
it's
they-
encumbered but not spent.
Okay,
Right.
yeah.
And that would be only if we got 227 Mississippi County residents,
In 3
hopefully
years.
living in Blytheville, Arkansas,
Within 3 years.
within 3 years.
Right.
So how often do they send you the numbers
yearly.
yearly? Okay.
Right.
Just curious.
Now, you know, all of our contracts are not like this. I mean, there are some that are older that we did up front. And then there are a few that were so highly competitive that we just went up front with the proviso that we will review their hiring and they will have to pay us back if they don't come up to, their commitment. But, you know, in 20 years, we've had a few companies that didn't come up. I mean, ART had heavy reverses, but we stopped the incentive as soon as they did, and they continued to pay their own money to pay rent at the Aeroflex. So they've actually been there longer than anyone's been there now. And all the money we invested went into public buildings anyway, it went into the hangars and the buildings. So, there was, who was it, Milwaukee Tool, they left, they hired everybody, but they didn't keep them for the 2 years. And they gave us, the building back, the building that we have a contract with now, with Bronco, who's moved into it. And then they wrote us a check for $125,000. So most companies, unless they just literally go flat up against the wall and don't have any money, they take the fallback position seriously. So, now what will come out of that off the top would be the 300 to finance the screen, hire, and train program.
And that would be included in the 2.7?
We can, yeah, I think.
Initially?
Yeah. Cause they will hire, I mean, they'll hire 30% or more from the boot hill.
Just the 3-year time frame, is that from the time they sign the contract or from the time that they break ground, I mean, that they?
The time they're operational, so it'll actually be 4 years, you know, from.
How long will it take them to build a $50 million building?
It'll take about a year, that's what it took Denso. Denso was a $35 million building, and that's 20 years.
Is this the building that is looking to be 1 million square feet underrated?
I don't, you know, they haven't told me the size of the building.
Did you say
Yeah.
anything? No.
Yes, they contacted me because they wanted to know about the meeting.
Okay.
So if we commit 2.7, we're initial investment's 300,000, the rest of it be at least a year down the road, and we'll have another 3.5 million in collections besides what we already have in the bank. And it's not gonna hurt us at all financially. We're very well capable of doing that and still being ready for the next project to come up.
Right.
Right, do you still have a couple of others? I know at one time you were working 2 or 3
Right,
projects.
we're still working, 2 other projects, one more in the north end and, well, actually 2 in the south end, 1 in the north end.
Okay, so with this commitment, whatever you think needs to happen with those, we would still have the funds to make those deals if we were to get both of those as well?
One of the things that can happen now that the tax has been approved, we can bond that money now.
Okay.
If we get to a situation of competing for in a highly competitive situation where the Supreme Court felt it was justified, we could actually borrow the money from a bond house and bond.
From future taxes?
Right, that was in the last constitutional amendment that the Arkansas Economic Developers got through the legislative session and the people approved it. Before that, you could only bond on the sales tax. I mean, you couldn't bond on the sales tax, you could only bond on the property tax. Now you can bond on the sales tax.
Okay.
So guys, I need a motion that we appropriate a maximum $2.7 million towards this project with $300,000 to be immediately available for the training program.
So moved.
Second.
Any other discussion you'd like to have about that, Cliff?
No, sir.
Any questions y'all want to, right now's the time to ask them if you don't want to ask them, at least on this project. Got a motion and second on the floor?
I'm kinda curious, I mean, you think this is the last piece that they have to make the final decision is that this answer today?
Yes.
So we'll know something very soon.
Right. What they'll do in a case like this they will probably announce that we're doing it based on everybody doing what they said. Because the state has to come through with their incentives, and we have to come through with ours. And if we don't, you know,
Could booger the project.
yes,
Okay.
well and true.
Got a motion made and a second, all in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes and you got your commitment.
Thank you, sir.
Tell them hurry. Any other thing you wanna bring before the committee today while you got our attention?
Well, we are continuing to work these other projects, and I think they'll start to fall. I mean, I have the sense, as we all do in our own businesses or whatever, you can tell when the wind's in your face and you can tell when it's at your back. And with the effort now approved to go forward for 13 years, the wind is at our back. I mean, this is gonna become, we're publicizing it now, and it's the truth. We are the largest steel producing county. We're not the largest steel producing area, but I wouldn't be surprised by the time, in 10 years, we won't be. I mean, we're going to have to seriously address labor force at some point. You know, if everybody in Mississippi County was working, which everybody in Mississippi County honestly doesn't want to, you know, I mean,
Truer words were never.
Exactly.
but, you know, we have to, you know, and we're looking, I mean, I'm doing some research on, you remember Southworth, the company that was an OCLer for so long?
Well,
When Southworth left Arkansas and just concentrated back in Georgia, they started a project there, and this is just early days of my research, but I've talked to them. They started a project where they run a faux factory for high school kids. Now, we had that same program going at the college for several years. It was kind of an offshoot of a STEM program, and we were busing kids into the college from Blytheville, from Osceola, Wilson, and Manila were participating. And they would go to the regular classes in the morning and then come into the college in the afternoon. And they would study, some electricity, how to convert fractions to decimals and decimals to fractions. That type of thing, so that they would be, and they would start to get some college credit. So, you know, the ones that were really on the ball would go ahead and get a 2-year steel degree and go to work for either Nucor or then Big River, you know, at $100+ a year. But even the ones that didn't do that, you know, they had some solid skills that they could trade. I think we'll probably wanna take a look at that again. And maybe this time, maybe try to put together a package, which we would have to share in the cost with the college, of actually going to the schools themselves, not making them all get on a bus and drive to Blytheville, but have it in Osceola, have it in Manila. Now, they could get there from Blytheville, or if we had a modular program that could be moved around, you know, even if the classes just lasted 2.5 days at 2 schools and 2.5 days at the other 2. You know, we could cover Blytheville, Osceola, Wilson, and Manila.
Would we be able to work the same kind of deal when these people are hired? The employer would partially reimburse us for that expense, or is that part of it?
That's just part of the competition now.
Okay.
Who's got the people, you know, and who's got the people that will go to work.
Yeah.
I mean, you look and see well, we've all seen it in Northwest Arkansas. I mean, if Tyson had been a widget maker, they wouldn't be there.
That's right.
They would have moved to Mexico, and then they would have moved to China.
That's right.
But they're not, they're a chicken processor. So they had to keep those chicken plants running. And chickens won't live in the Delta, you know, not in those houses. So they had to go to the Marshall Islands and take half their people and bring them to Northwest Arkansas. And then, of course, they started off with, you know, the people from Mexico, and a couple of guys went to jail. And then, but they got the word out, and then they just started showing up, you know. And mean, we may have to actually look seriously, and the difficulty is that it's not the big companies that ever, the Big River and Nucor are never gonna face this tension. They're always gonna have the guys they want, the girls they want, they're gonna have whoever they want, you know, because they pay enough to get them. So where we're feeling the pressure is at the very kind of jobs we want most, the Denzos, the Kagomis, the Nipcos, you know, our old line manufacturers, where you don't have to be young and extremely healthy and tough as a cop to do the job, you know.
Don't you think that there's some sort of investment though, that what you're talking about, you're talking about at the high school level, the actual hands-on training?
Right.
But somewhere along the lines, at the earlier in the middle school years is where training on work ethic and some of those things that I think needs to be addressed as well, because they're not, they might have the skills or the mentality to be able to do it, but if they're not ever taught why they ought to get up and do it.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, that's something that we need to look at. It's a big
Well, it
picture.
is, and, you know, and in years past, we've looked at like perhaps hiring a labor recruiter. You know, someone who spoke Spanish, who could go to Texas, who could get the word out.
Yeah, just send a truck down there and pick up 100,000.
I don't think it's quite that simple, but obviously, that raises you know, even doing that, we've been backed off a couple of times. I've been backed off before I ever brought it to y'all. Once I mentioned it, and then several of us got talked to, and we thought, you know, maybe we'll just wait on that. But we're gonna fast approach the point where we have to seriously address that.
The latest census, the 2020 census numbers have come out now. We dropped 5,800 in the county, 12.5%. We dropped from a little over 46,000 to slightly over 40,000 now in Mississippi County. 12.5% drop in the last decade.
The thing that'll help us is what you're saying, is having jobs available for people that want to work. Because you got a population in this county that'll never work. They never have, well, they haven't worked since the farm days, the cotton chopping days,
Right.
which I can remember well, y'all, okay? So if we get enough jobs, those people for $25 an hour, whether they're from Mexico, Guatemala, or Florida, or wherever, will move here to have a job.
Yeah.
And if we work on our school systems, I repeat, we work on our school systems, increase our discipline in town, wholesale and blind, and these people will come. That's what Northwest Arkansas did. You know, they made a viable, safe community for people to work. And they do have a higher percentage, of course, of Central Americans that come up through the one work.
Well, that's true, and, you know, people don't, the people who come to work, they're not criminal, they're
No.
not interested in
Criminal
getting
doesn't want
into.
to work, that's read as a criminal.
That's right, yeah. So, yes, I mean, that's true. I mean, I've been a little surprised over the years, because the big construction crews that work, you know, to build the steel mills and build their additions, they have a really high percentage of Hispanic workers,
Yes, they do.
but very few actually stay.
Don't they go with them?
Cause they follow the jobs.
Right,
Yeah.
but, you know, both Nucor and Big River will hire right off those construction crews. You know, that's one of the places where they spot workers.
Several kids in South Mississippi County that I know got them jobs with the construction crews, ship
Right.
steel, stuff like that. They went directly from there
Yeah,
because they improved the work ethic, you know,
Right.
and got their jobs there. An opportunity for working people is what we need, which is what you're trying to do.
yeah.
Those that wanna work will work, and those that have family and friends at Lake Village and Mississippi or wherever will say, hey, I got a good job, a good place to live, come on. That's where we've survived for generations on the farm here.
Yeah,
Granddaddy, daddy, and great-granddaddy all work the same place.
right.
Doing the right thing, I'm tickled.
Guys, any other business for P&D today? Announcement wise, there will be a sanitation and solid waste committee meeting next Monday at 1 o'clock right here. And, right after that will be your regular finance committee meeting at 1:30 that will be chaired by Justice Jackson. Following that, the next week, will be our regular monthly quorum court meeting, Tuesday night at 7 p.m. at Burdett. With all of that, we'll call the meeting adjourned. Thank you.